really be motherfucking left for dead.
I got the straw.
Just when fans thought that things between the ex-couple couldn't get any messier, shocking new evidence has surfaced revealing that Bambi might have found love again. The real twist is that her new man isn't just any random guy. The latest bombshell has everyone talking on the internet and has left Scrappy devastated. According to sources, he will leave Scrappy totally destroyed. The tension is extremely high as rumors of secret rendezvous, cryptic social media posts, and late-night meetings begin to spread. Fans are assembling the clues, and the picture they're coming up with is absolutely explosive. Scrappy, who had been attempting to reconcile with their breakup, apparently didn't anticipate this. He is having trouble processing the betrayal, according to insiders. Could this be the ultimate act of revenge orchestrated by Bambi? Or is there something more profound going on behind the scenes? Emotions are running high, accusations are flying, and the internet is split. Who is this mystery man? How did Scrappy find out? And most importantly, how will he react? Stay tuned because we're going to break it all down. The drama, the heartbreak, and the unexpected turn that nobody saw coming caused the internet to be ablaze with theories and conjecture. Rumors of Bambi's new romance had been circulating for weeks, but no one had hard evidence until now. It began with a single grainy photo, but as soon as a clearer version appeared, fans lost their minds. Bambi was dressed to the nines as she stepped out of a sleek black SUV in front of a fancy restaurant in Atlanta. But it was the man next to her, tall and broad-shouldered and confident, who knew he had everyone's attention. The way he looked at Bambi was the true story, and within minutes, blogs and gossip were circulating about it. A lot of people initially thought it was just another unfounded rumor because Bambi and Scrappy had just broken up, and although their relationship had been tense, she hadn't been publicly connected to anyone. However, as more information surfaced, it became evident that there was more to the story. A screenshot of Bambi and her mystery man was sent to him by friends, fans, and even people he hadn't spoken to in months. At first, he ignored it because he had seen enough rumors about himself and his ex to know that the situation was serious. However, Scrappy had no idea what was going on until his phone began to blow up. As the notifications continued to come in, his curiosity overcame him, and he clicked on one of the links. His stomach dropped when he saw the picture. It was him, the man in it, his hands clenched into fists. He stared at the screen, his mind racing, trying to piece together past events that suddenly made too much sense. Since this had been going on behind his back, had Bambi already moved on before their breakup? He read the comments in search of some rational explanation, but instead he found chaos. Wow, Bambi wasted no time in moving on. Damn, Scrappy must be in pain right now. Wait, isn't that one of Scrappy's homeboys? That last comment stopped him cold. There was no way he zoomed. As if someone had flipped a switch, he was looking at the man's face in the picture when memory suddenly came flooding back. This wasn't just any random guy, though. It was someone who had been around them before, someone who had visited their home, someone that Scrappy had once trusted. Amber burned through him like fire, and he had to hear this directly from Bambi herself. Without hesitation, he hit call. If Bambi believed she could just move on like this, especially with him, without at least giving him a heads up, she had another thing coming. He tried calling again, straight to voicemail, but Scrappy was not the type to put his personal business out there, so he gritted his teeth and tightened his jaw. He didn't care that Bambi wouldn't answer his phone right now because he was going to find out the truth in another way. At that moment, his phone lit up with another notification, a text from a close friend. Bro, you're not going to like this. Call me ASAP. Scrappy didn't hesitate. He dialed the number right away, and when his friend answered, he saw the pictures. Scrappy exhaled. There was a pause, and then his friend said in a low, cautious voice, "It's who you think it is." Scrappy's stomach twist. He knew the answer before the words were spoken. "So no," Scrappy whispered, rubbing his face. "You have to be kidding me," he said. "But listen, this isn't even new. People have been talking about this for For a moment, Scrappy's thoughts went blank. Had he truly been that blind? He shook his head, asking, "Where are you at right now?" In a tight voice. "I'm out, but if you try to pull up, I've got some more to tell you." Scrappy immediately grabbed his keys, and I'm sure he muttered, "I'm on my way," as he stormed out of his house. He thought that if this were true, Bambi would need to explain himself. Scrappy drove through the streets of Atlanta, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His mind was racing, and his emotions were alternating between shock, anger, and disbelief. How had he not anticipated this? How long had Bambi been manipulating him? And worst of all, why him out of all the men in? The betrayal felt personal. He pulled up to a familiar location, a small lounge where his close friend was waiting. As soon as Scrappy entered, he noticed him at a corner table, looking uncomfortable. Without any delay, he slid into the seat across from him, leaned forward, and spoke to me while his friend looked on. Scrappy froze, his jaw clenched, his breathing became labored, and for a moment he just stared at what his voice was saying. His friend nodded grimly. "I didn't want to say anything before because you know it wasn't my business, but after seeing those pictures, man, I knew you had to get the truth." Scrappy wiped his face and felt his chest tight, as if someone had just taken the wind out of him. His friend took out his phone and looked through his messages. "Look at this." Scrappy read the text, his heart racing with every word. Messages from mutual acquaintances, some dating back months, discussing Bambi. Getting cozy with this guy at private events, sneaking around, and meeting up at places Scrappy never would have expected make him feel sick. I knew she was acting strangely toward the end, but I assumed she was just exhausted from all the fights. His friend cut him off, slamming the phone down on the table. Exhaled. "Look, man, I hate to be the one telling you all of this, but you needed to hear it, and that's not even the worst part." Scrappy's head snapped up. "What do you mean? What do you mean?" Scrappy's face went blank. Again, his voice was low, deadly. "I mean, dude, he's been running his mouth." He continued cautiously, telling people how he bagged Bambi. "How?" "When she played you by saying that she was never truly happy with you, laughing about it as if it were a joke." A slow-burning rage crept up Scrappy's spine. He gritted his teeth and felt tense all over at the idea of some guys sitting around casually discussing taking his woman, no, his wife, as if it were some sort of achievement, as if Scrappy was just a simple idiot who didn't see it coming. "Wasn't going to fly," Scrappy said to his friend. "I need to see him." He hesitated. "You sure that's a good idea, man?" Scrappy snapped, "I need to see him." He checked his phone, and he was downtown right now, with a few people there, so it wasn't just him. But he looked Scrappy in the eye, saying, "Don't do anything crazy." Scrappy didn't answer, but he was already stumbling up. Taking his keys, Scrappy was already leaving the house. Downtown Atlanta was bustling with music, traffic, and the never-ending buzz of nightlife. When Scrappy pulled up outside the lounge where the so-called new man was supposed to be, he didn't think twice about going inside and looking around until he saw him. He was sitting at a table, laughing and looking incredibly arrogant. He inhaled deeply, forcing himself to maintain composure. He wasn't going to cause a scene in public, but he walked over right away, changing the atmosphere in the room as the conversation slowed and the man's eyes darted toward him. For a moment, Scrappy noticed a flash of surprise on his face, but then he smirked and said, "Bad move, Scrap." Back in his chair as if he was at ease and didn't anticipate seeing you here, Scrappy pulled up a chair across from him. His face was indescribable, but his eyes were cold. "Do you know why I'm here?" The man laughed and shook his head. "Come on, man, we're really doing this." Scrappy didn't blink, telling me that the tension was high and that the whole room felt the weight of what was happening. The man asked in a casual, almost amused tone, "Are you mad about Bambi?" When Scrappy clenched his jaw, he exhaled and shook his head, saying, "Look, man, I ain't going back and forth over no woman. She made her choice. You made yours. It is what it is." Scrappy took a slow breath and nodded. But the man shrugged. Yeah, I was going to tell you myself. That's how Scrappy studied him, though, and his jaw tightened. He was arrogant and showed no remorse. That's when Scrappy realized that this wasn't just about Bambi. It was about respect. And at that moment, Scrappy didn't feel respected at all. The room was silent, and everyone was watching to see what would happen next. Forward, lowering his voice so that only the man could hear. You find this funny? The man smirked. I believe you took this too seriously. Scrappy's eyes darkened. A beat went by, and then suddenly, his fist struck the table so forcefully that glasses rattled, drinks spilled, and people gasped. The man winced, and when his smirk vanished, Scrappy didn't touch him yet, but the message was, this is just the beginning. Scrappy stormed out of the lounge, his mind in chaos, his pulse pounding, his jaw clenched so tight it ached, and he said, Clear, you better watch yourself. His voice was dangerously low because, I assure you, this isn't over. With that, Scrappy got up and left, but as he entered the night, one thing was certain. This was just the beginning. But something told him that wasn't the move yet. He needed a plan. As soon as he got into the car, his phone began to buzz. He didn't even need to check because the worm had already spread throughout the streets. He spoke quickly, and by the time he reached halfway down the block, he received the text confirming what he already knew. Bambi knew she had heard everything. Scrappy exhaled sharply, gripping the steering wheel, knowing exactly what was going to happen next, and his phone rang like clockwork. For a moment, he thought about ignoring it and letting her perspire, wondering if he was going to pull up and really set things off, but instead he wanted to hear what she had to say. He swiped to answer, What the hell are you doing? Bambi's voice was sharp and filled with anger, and Scrappy let out a, I heard you just ran up on him at the lounge. And she snapped. What was that supposed to prove? Scrappy shook his head, biting back the words he wanted to say instead, keeping his voice calm and controlled. It proves that I'm not the one to play with Bambi. Get over your foolishness, Scrap. Scrappy cut her off. No, you're the one who's acting crazy while running around with someone who has been boasting about you like you're just another trophy. He's telling me how he begs you and how you've been sneaking up on me for months in silence. And during that time, Scrappy knew the truth and she couldn't deny it, so I assumed that's what Bambi was saying. Exhaling deeply, Scrappy clenched his fist and said, This wasn't supposed to happen. So, Bambi, when were you going to tell me? I put another ring on your finger, and that's not fair. You want to talk about fair? Scrappy laughed, shaking his head. Let's talk about how you played me. While you were out here sneaking around with him, I was unhappy and needed something different. Then you showed the left first, and Scrappy shot back, instead of making me look like a damn fool. Bambi didn't respond right away, and when she did, her voice was softer. I didn't want to hurt you. Scrappy exhaled through his face. Your smile gave me hope that we had a chance. Bambi said something that made Scrappy's blood turn cold. I know how you get, and I don't want you out here starting problems, Scrappy said, narrowing his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? Well, congrats you did, he said, his nose tightening his grip on the wheel. I think I know both of you, Bambi said carefully, and I think this is going to get really messy. Scrappy leaned his head back against the seat, staring up at the roof of his car, which was already messy, and then as he said that, he let out a slow, dangerous laugh. You really think I'm afraid of that man? If Faith was confirming Bambi's suspicions, his phone rang and he saw a new message. Unknown, no beer, yo, Scrap, we got to talk. I got some info you need to know about Bambi's new man, call me Scrappy. He frowned and stared at the message, not knowing the number, but something about it felt serious. Bambi asked Scrappy what was wrong, but he didn't respond. Instead, he simply read it again, his instincts taking over. Before Bambi could object, Scrappy muttered, Something wasn't right. I have to go. He stared at his phone for a few seconds before finally dialing back the number. The call came in right away, and Scrappy sat up. Scrap, who this? You don't know me like that, but I know what's going on, the voice said. If you think that man is just some regular dude, you're dead wrong. What are you talking about, man? Let's just say that you aren't the only person he has been playing games with. I have receipts that make Scrappy's heart race. What kind of receipts are they? I have screenshots, voice memos, and videos with the voice saying things that will make Bambi wonder who she has been playing with. But it's not just about her, Scrap. This man is dangerous. Scrappy's stomach is tight and dangerous. Scrappy hesitated, and every instinct in his body was telling him to be careful. But he couldn't let this go if there was something else going on, if this man wasn't just a player, or if there was something more, so he needed to know where we met him. I mean, you are not the only one he crossed, and some people don't take that lightly. I have proof. The man on the other end gave him an address. It was only a few blocks away, and he said, "Watch your back, K-I-C-K Scrappy." Scrappy sat there wondering, this isn't over by a long shot, because if this guy actually had proof that there was something even dirtier behind Bambi's new man, Scrappy was going to find out, and when he did, things would never be the same. The same thing happened again. Scrappy was sitting in his car outside the meeting location, his leg bouncing nervously. It was an old warehouse on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where deals were made in the dark. His instinct told him that this was dangerous, but he was driven forward by curiosity and rage. His phone vibrated with an unknown number, and Scrappy hesitated before typing back. A figure appeared from the alley next to the warehouse, and Scrappy tensed, clutching the handle of his car door. He wasn't going to enter a setup, but the man moved closer, partly in the shadows, and Scrappy could see the urgency in his movements. "You Scrappy?" the man asked. Scrappy got out of his car but kept his. "Who's asking distance?" The man let out a sharp exhale. "I'm not your enemy, man. I just thought you should know who you're really dealing with." Scrappy folded his arms and began to speak. Rico took out his phone and began scrolling through messages. "This dude Bambi is messing with. He's not a clean man. He has dirt on a lot of people, and he doesn't just break hearts. He destroys lives." Scrappy narrowed his. "What do you mean by that, Eyes?" Rue turned the screen in his direction, and a string of text messages appeared from Bambi's new partner, sent to various women. "She doesn't even realize that I have her enamored with me, but this is all part of the plan, baby. She believes she is winning, but she is going to take the fall. Though Scrappy isn't even my actual issue, she is Scrappy's blood ran cold. What the hell is going on?" Rico shook his head and said, "He's using Bambi right now. He has some sort of scheme going on, and she's just another pawn. He does this with women who have money, status, and connections. After he gets what he needs, he moves on and leaves them to deal with the foul," Scrappy clenching his fist, "and she doesn't even notice it." "No," Rico muttered. "She thinks she's in control, but she isn't." Scrappy took a deep breath and tried to comprehend what he was. When he realized that he had been upset with Bambi for choosing a random guy over him and moving on so quickly, he asked, "Why are you telling me this?" and gave Rico a knowing look. "I know how this plays out, and if he doesn't step in, it's G to be really bad for her," Scrappy said, rubbing his hand across his face and letting out a sharp exhale. He had two options: walk away and let Bambi learn the hard way, or intervene and blow this whole thing up. His decision was made in seconds. "I need proof," Scrappy said. "Don't just text her something solid, something she can't ignore." Rico smirked before you did. He tapped his phone and played a recording of a man's voice. "Yes, she believes we are solid, but she doesn't know. I already have my next move planned once I..." The following night, Bambi was at a fancy lounge, sitting across from her new man. She was smiling and completely unaware of what was going to happen. Scrappy entered calmly and collectively, but there was a storm building behind his eyes. Bambi looked up, surprised and irritated, and he called out, "Get that bag. I'm going." Scrappy gritted his teeth. That was all he needed. Her new man smirked as he leaned back in his chair. "You're really pressed," Scrappy said, not even acknowledging him, but instead taking out his phone, tapping the screen, and letting the recording play aloud. When Bambi heard her man admit that he was only using her, her expression changed, her smile disappeared, and her body stiffened. "You're serious," she whispered, turning to the man. He shifted uncomfortably next to her. "Come on, baby. You know how people misinterpret things." Bambi put her phone down on the table and recorded him in real time. She said, "Try to explain yourself again." He hesitated, and that was all the confirmation she needed. "You played me," she whispered, her voice full of betrayal. Scrappy watched as the realization hit her like a ton of pebbles. He had been upset with her for moving on, but now he felt sorry for her because she didn't know what she had gotten herself into. The new man got up and glared at Scrappy, saying, "You're really bold for this man. Do you think this is over?" Scrappy grinned. "No, I think it's just getting started." The tension in the room was high, and Bambi's hands were shaking as she looked at the man she had trusted to leave me. Mumbled, "Before I do something I regret." The man hesitated, then backed off, realizing he had already lost, and he stormed out of the lounge. Scrappy turned to leave, but before he could, Bambi called out her voice. This time, "Scrap," but he paused for a moment. Neither of them spoke, so Bambi swallowed hard. "Thank you." Scrappy gave her one last look before leaving, perhaps it wasn't meant to be, but one thing was certain. He wouldn't allow anyone to play her that way. What a crazy turn of events. Just when Bambi thought she had moved on, the truth came crashing down, and Scrappy was the one to reveal it. Fans are in shock, their emotions are running high, and the biggest question now is, will Bambi recover from this? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you think Scrappy did the right thing, or should we have stayed out of it? If you enjoy the drama and don't mind, hit the like button. Will Scrappy and Bambi find common ground after this betrayal, or is this just the start of another messy chapter? Most importantly, who is this mystery man, and what else is he hiding? Remember to subscribe, because I assure you that there are still more twists, scandals, and startling revelations to come throughout this journey.